This is a weird one. I've seen this video quite some time ago actually, and I followed this creator for a while, still occasionally watch the videos, but after this video I actually kind of stopped because I don't know, it was weird, and I just, after this video, I couldn't really watch this creator anymore. It was like, just, she said something that I found, I wouldn't say offensive, but just so outlandish and out of this world, and in a way pretty naive. Um, and after that, I kind of felt like I don't really feel any connection to this creator anymore. And that's what it's like, you know, if you watch YouTube videos. I rarely watch YouTube videos, so I tend to curate what I watch and just watch a very limited number of people. And so for me, this was kind of, I don't know, I was just over this channel after that, I guess. But let's see, you know, what she has to say, because this is an older video and I think a lot has changed in her life as well. I also want to point out that this is like, for me, this is just an example. This is not about this specific creator. It is more about something that I have a general problem with in this, yeah, space of minimalism, self-improvement, productivity maybe, you know, because some things in this community are just things that I don't agree with. For instance, the whole that girl aesthetic, that kind of thing, and this whole self-healing and self-improvement part of this community, the challenges, all of this, I kind of want to put my opinion out there on it, because I think it's important that we have a variety of opinions in this space, and it's not all just, I don't know, hippie healing stuff and barefoot shoes, all right? So I have nothing against barefoot shoes. I own a pair, but you know, so I don't know, it's just so, maybe I put in, did I put in a disclaimer? I hate disclaimers, but this one is important. Please don't go over on this creator's page and tell her that she sucks or something. I actually think this is very cringy to watch, yeah, but that is why I put this on my platform, and I don't write like a nasty comment or something. And you know, just, I think that's unnecessary, and I don't want to make fun of this creator, or you know, maybe just a little bit, but we're all out there and it's fine to make a little bit of fun of each other, but not like in a nasty way or shame her or anything. I just want to raise awareness for this kind of topic, and I think that this video is a very good example. So that is why we're going to talk about this video. It's not to shame anybody, and it's not made to harass this creator, so please don't go over on her page and say nasty things. You know, if you want to speak your opinion, do it politely in the comments or in the chat window. Okay, let's start. Let's see where this is going. I might have to speed it up though. I think she speaks very calmly, and yeah, let's just see what she says. And let me know if she is if you can hear the sound correctly.
There's something that needs to heal inside there, and inside here, and inside everywhere around me, and inside of me, and so.
Oh boy, I don't know. There's music. I hope it doesn't get copyright or something.
Only the beginning. So.
Okay, let's just skip this part with the music.
A very special video, and this is one that I've been thinking of making potentially in the future, but
anyone else finds it so weird that when couples show up like on a video together, and usually it's like the female creator that starts talking and the dude is just sitting there like, yeah, I'm just sitting here, don't know what to do with my legs and hands. I don't know, but I think they seem like a cute couple actually. I don't know, but I think they're not together anymore. It's like and she has made a series of videos about it, and they call the breakup diaries, I think. I just saw the thumbnails, and the first one, like I watched like 5 minutes or something. I didn't want to spoil anything, and I don't know. it's a little bit clickbaity maybe, but you know, if you want to talk about your breakup publicly, I personally wouldn't do that, I think, but a lot of people do it. So I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts on this are. I think it's weird, but yeah, maybe it's not weird anymore for today's generation. For me, it's weird.
I think that it's important for me to talk about it right now. I think it's part of my process, and also it's been so prevalent in my life lately that it would feel unauthentic and dishonest to just share my vlogs without sharing that part of my life.
Well, now this is the point where I think I don't quite buy it, or it's at least raising a slightly orangey red flag for me. As in, when a creator starts a video with, like, oh, it's so hard for me to talk about this, but I have to. Like, for the sake of this channel, I have to, because otherwise it would just feel like lying to you guys, leaving something out. And I say that with the fact in mind that I made a video about my chronic pain and stuff, you know, that I've been dealing with. But the thing is that I actually just went on my long distance hike because I wanted to improve my chronic pain, and I did. And that would have really just not been consistent, you know, throughout my channel if I had just left out that fact that this was just basically the reason I did this hike. So I think it's kind of justified that I made a video about it, and it still felt awkward talking about it. So I kind of feel this, but I'm kind of not buying it, because what she's about to talk is basically a very, very personal thing that has nothing to do with her vlogs or her videos or her walking around buying shoes, or whatever else influencer stuff that she does. I don't really think it has much to do with each other. I think it's more like, I want to talk about this, so I'm going to talk about this. And girl, I think if you want to talk about it because it's important to you and you just want it out there and you like 100% stand behind this, not just because you said it once and like after that it's like totally awkward and you cannot, you know, move back from it, and say like, oh yeah, I was wrong, this was stupid. Not because of that, you know, you're not like that. You say, okay, I stand behind this 100%. I always knew this was cool and this is cool. And if you don't like this, you don't like me. Good for you. But this whole, I have to talk about this. No, you don't.
I've had the moment. So a few months ago, I started a healing journey through.
Sorry, it's just the word healing journey. Can we just talk it? If you're ill, it's called therapy. You know, if you have a mental illness, it's called therapy. Even in other, there's cancer therapy, it's called therapy, treatment, and after that, recovery, physical therapy. There are medical terms for medical things. So if you have an illness and you need to heal from an injury or a mental illness, then you have therapy. Healing journey, I don't know. This is the sort of language that gives me cringe, that gives me secondhand embarrassment. And I'm like, why do we have to make such a big fuss out of something natural? Like, if it's also natural, you know, healing, connecting with yourself, whatever, why can't we just use like normal, precise words just like that? Yeah, I'm getting better. Good. No. Okay, good for you. Go get better. Healing journey.
Recover from trauma, and so I wanted to make this video and especially do the introduction with Ross because he's the one who introduced me to.
Okay, let's just keep this in mind before we continue watching. So, she set the framing for this video by using the word trauma. And I just want to point that out here because she says she's recovering from trauma and that trauma is what this video is about, why it is so important and so relevant to her channel, her whole development and everything like that. And I find, when I hear somebody talk about trauma, what I think about is, or what I think of is some incident that happened maybe in your childhood or even your adult life that was violent, that was against your person, that was against you physically or mentally, or maybe multiple incidents like that that traumatized you. The verb associated with trauma is to traumatize. Someone came into your life, a person, or a dramatic event like a tsunami or something, and it traumatized you. So that is what I think of when somebody starts off a video with trauma. And what I expect as a viewer is to hear about what that trauma is, or at least something vague, so I can think, oh, it's SA, okay, let's not maybe talk about all the details. I understand, let's not talk about this. Or it's some child trauma, something really, really evil that happened. So I understand if a person doesn't want to talk about this. But as a viewer, I expect some sort of framework about what this mysterious thing is. So let's just go into this video with a natural expectation of, if you call your thumbnail opening up, and if you say it's your trauma healing journey, that it's a very human thing to expect to know what that trauma will be, all right?
This process of healing, and you also have way more experience than I have with it, so I thought...
He has more experience with trauma healing, cool.
To have you here, and so you could share a little bit about how you discovered it and what it is.
Yeah, so the method and the process that we're talking about is called vegetative training.
Okay.
So before diving into that and explaining it, I could just share with you how I found this method and found the healer that I and now Chloe are working with.
This part is raising more red flags than the Soviet army, but yeah, I guess if you're in this room or in this niche of self-improvement, maybe people just don't see it. I don't know. I didn't read the comments, but but I often find that these videos, they resonate so well with our community, with our minimalism, finding yourself, self-development journey. I think it's just resonating so well with that often, and we're not being critical. And if we're being slightly critical, people call it hypercritical and ask why you have to comment on it. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I think we should always comment on stuff. It's online. It's made to be commented on. Just because your comment isn't positive doesn't make it like an evil thing. I think I picked the wrong time zone though. Well, I guess you guys are just gonna watch it later then. I don't know, but maybe I didn't put the stream online properly. I don't know. Anyway, so this is so weird, Basically what they're saying is, hey, I found this trauma healing guy, and what's his name? Ross. So he goes like, hey Chloe, I got trauma, you got trauma. I found this awesome healing guy a bunch of years ago, and we're basically besties. So let's just go and visit him and spend 3,000 euros or something on this healing stuff that he does, because it's so amazing. It's going to change your life. You want to do this with me? I mean, you're my girlfriend. How can you possibly say no? Come on, lovebird. Let's go and do some healing on our journey, I guess. I don't know if that is how it went down, but I don't know. It's just raised so many red flags, this whole guru stuff, this whole introducing you to this healer. Like, what normal, sane person meets somebody else, like a new boyfriend, and his new boyfriend goes like, hey, I know this healer, and he does this amazing work. I want to introduce you to my healer, and doesn't run.
So it was 2017 for me, and I was probably maybe 3 years into my self-development journey. But I just felt as though I was repeating similar patterns. I kept finding myself in just like these same like end results, and I stumbled.
reminds me of this. It reminds me of this saying, you know, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. That's the definition of insanity. Yeah. So he was doing some insane, not very useful self-development stuff, and got stuck in this self-development place of his. So he wanted to try out something new, like every 50-something in the 90s did. Okay, why not? Now it's young people, I guess. Let's see what he has to say.
Work, Engage All Klassen, out of Germany, and
everything good comes from Germany. I can say that, I'm German. It's just like, I don't remember this part, but it's just so funny now that I watch it. It's like, out of Germany. Like, they are they in Austria? Like, it would be really funny if they were in Austria and he was like, oh, I met this guy from Germany. No, but that was the other way around, you know, historically. But anyway, so I think they're in Switzerland, French part of Switzerland, beautiful mountains. I think she has done some really beautiful hiking videos. She's actually quite a gifted filmmaker, and I that's why I watched her. I found it inspirational to watch her casual vlogs and just yeah, how she looks. She seems to me like a very feminine person that really is able to put herself in a scene beautifully and place herself in front of the camera beautifully, and I admire that. And as I said, don't go over to this person and harass her. Like, that's not what we're doing here. We're just taking this as an example of new age cringe and why it's problematic and why it's not good for vulnerable audiences. And I just think that is a good starting point to talk about this topic. I don't think that, you know, I could take any video and talk about this, but I have this video and I don't watch so many videos, so we're going with this. Okay, let's see what she says next, or what he says.
When I just read his articles, it just like,
let's speed this
really
up a little bit. Oh, he wrote articles. Okay, probably optimized, so you would Google it and find it. Let's see, let's go to the fastest speed here.
Me, and I just got this feeling that I need to go to this man. There has been nothing in my life that has ever provided me such like significant and deep transformation. I will say that.
I think that's so sad to say. Like, when you say, okay, I found this man online and I read his articles and then I met this person and nothing ever gave me so much transformation, so much improvement. And didn't you go to university? Don't you have friends? Like, I really feel sorry for this man, that he says that some spiritual healer who maybe allegedly rips people off, or at least charges them a lot. I mean, you obviously have some sort of money. That seems like an expensive couch over there if it's yours. But I mean, clearly this is raising a lot of red flags. This is a problematic thing as an adult, and they both seem like past the age of 18. You know, you should be able to understand, like, if you hear spiritual healer, that there are a lot of black sheep out there, and that before they want your good, like 99% of them probably want your money even more than your good. Maybe some of them believe the stuff that they tell you, but I don't know. When I hear retreat in the mountains, German healer, that is not something I would read and think like, oh yeah, seems legit. Let's move on, or we're never gonna finish this video. It's 30 minutes, holy crap.
That VGT starts, vegetative training, VGT, with the principle
They have their own abbreviation. Vegetative training, vegetative, when I think of that, when I hear that, I think of a vegetative state, which is basically a state where you're not really responsive, but you have basic reflexes. Um, if a patient experiences that in a hospital, it's a bad thing. But I mean, you do you. Just use words that you don't know much about and label them something fancy and make a website about it, and maybe then it's cool, I guess.
That our emotions, our emotional life, the experiences that we have, get stored and trapped in our body. If they are not properly that
Come again. Come again. I didn't know.
we have get stored and trapped in our body. Our vegetative training, VGT, with the principle that our emotions, our emotional life, the experiences that we have, get stored and trapped in our body.
Our emotion and the experiences that we have, did I catch that right? That's stored in our bodies. Like when you have something, somebody says something mean to you, like, oh, you look like shit today, you look hungover, then that information gets stored in my cells somehow. Yeah, it's called a memory. It's biochemistry. That's basic biochemistry. If I want to remember that fact, or probably, depending on if my brain deems it relevant, it will probably stay in my ultra short and short memory for a while. Eventually it will be forgotten because I don't remember what some person in uni said to me 2 years ago about my body. But I guess if you are the kind of person that gets hung up on this kind of stuff, maybe, your cells remember that. It's called brain functionality. But let's see what exactly he means by that.
If they are not properly processed. So as children, if we are not around an environment of empathetic parents.
Oh, that's what he's talking. Okay, so he's not talking about how the brain works and how biochemistry in the brain works, if synapses. He's talking about some memories, as in happy memories, bad memories, that kind of thing, and that gets stored in your body somehow, and it's possible that it's not processed correctly. It's not explained what that means, but I think what they are getting at is something like, if you haven't dealt with the negative experiences that you had as a child in, I don't know, the Swiss castle you grew up in, I guess, or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm judging them a little bit, but I would also totally be open to talking to them about this, because if I hear something like that, I just want to challenge it, because this seems so outlandish to me, and I don't know. I like discussing this kind of stuff, and I want to do it. I'm trying my best actually to not be super mean and sarcastic, but I'm me. So if I'm being super sarcastic and it's mean, I apologize formally. From my heart, I don't really mean it, but formally I want to apologize, because I don't intend hurt with what I'm saying. But I also think that if you're a person on the internet, you have to grow a thick skin and be okay with people to reacting to what you say and tell you stuff that you don't necessarily want to hear. Like, people tell me stuff that I want to hear. I made a video about how I like avoid plastic, because, we don't need any more of that crap in the ocean. And someone said, but your glasses are made out of plastic. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock.
An empathetic society, we don't get shown by example how to go through really challenging emotional experiences. And therefore what happens is we suppress them and they get stored in our body.
So, if you have bad parents, or parents that are not perfect at showing you how to deal with negative experiences, those negative experiences don't get processed and then get stored in your body. Seems legit. No, it's just called bad childhood memories. We all have them. So you get slapped at some point, yelled at, like just things that probably every child has experienced at some point when they did something as a kid. And, it was kind of normal to yell at your kid, to spank them or something like that. You experienced that kind of thing, and now that spank is forever stored in your body. Like, I got a lot of spanks, and I don't think they're stored in my body actually. Maybe I should check out this German healing dude. Like, after all, I'm German. Maybe he gives me some percentage off. Like, maybe there are vouchers for fellow German influencers, or if I make a weird video about it. I don't know. Let's see about that. But anyway, I think that we have something like muscle memory. I think that we very well can remember our trauma. And I believe that the way that all memories, not just trauma, all memories are stored is physical or biochemical, because that is just how the brain works. So by the way, if you want to add your comment, if you want to say anything about this, or you have some question or anything, want me to put up the volume or something, just let me know in the chat window so I can adapt this to your needs. But yeah, I agree. I think that what is stored in your body as a memory is essentially physical. And you have an influence on that. For instance, if you take a hammer to your head and hit yourself over the head really hard, you're gonna have amnesia, probably, from before the event, of the impact, and after. So, memories are physical. There's no denying that. If you have brain damage, part of your memories can be gone. Maybe not the ones that you want gone, but...
And as these emotions get stored in our body, they create this character armor, this shell, where all of a sudden the person that we are showing up as and expressing ourselves through in society is really this blocked and small version of our potential and our authentic self. So vegetative training is the
Gotta speed it up a little bit more even. It's just come on. There's no times two.
process of, through the body, finding these traumas, finding these blocks, and rebooting the body's ability to self-regulate so that these emotional...
Now it gets really interesting. Okay, so all this trauma keeps you small. It's basically kitchen psychology, but okay. If you haven't dealt with your trauma, you stay small as a person. Maybe you stay in that mindset of a child, especially in child trauma. I think you actually see that a lot in clinical psychology. You just get stuck in this version of yourself, and you might see that maybe you or your spouse or a person you deal with that hasn't really processed their experiences, they might lash out, it's called lash out, yeah, to you or somebody else in a childish way. And childish meaning, not being able to deal with it like a mature person, an adult that is able to regulate, to self-regulate. Because at some point in life, children have to learn to self-regulate, and that means to calm themselves down when they are upset. That means if you don't get a toy in the store and you start being on the floor and crying and shouting, and your parent is not buying you that ugly ass Barbie, well, at some point you gotta calm down. And usually that would happen with the help of your parent. When I go to the store with my kid and she wants something and I don't want to buy it, I'm gonna get down at her level, I'm gonna talk to her calmly and give her a hug and be like, I understand you want this, it's really pretty, but it's also very expensive, and we can buy other stuff that you actually need. You already have one like this and you don't need it, and you're not going to miss out on anything if you don't have it. And maybe we go home, and if you find some things that you want to declutter, we can do that together. And if you really declutter your things, maybe then you can have this, but not right now. And it also goes to impulse control, because later in life, I hope so, I hope that my kid will later in life thank me and be like, good that my mother taught me impulse control and that we didn't go off on every impulse and just bought the stuff that I wanted. Because you're not doing your kid a favor at this point when you're just going like, okay, you can have it right away because I'm generous and I never had this when I was little, and so I'm gonna give you everything. That's wrong too. So yeah, let's see where they're going with this. This has gone way too long.
Experiences can come to the surface so that we can feel what was once suppressed.
Oh yeah, they're talking about how they reboot their body. As far as I was concerned, I always thought that you could just reboot a computer, but if you think you can reboot your body, this is the first of the bigger red flags for me actually, because people go to therapy for months and months, and even after that, sometimes some of them are re-traumatized. Reliving their trauma didn't help them, made it worse. Others found other trauma that related to their traumata, and just found that they have to work on that, and it's all very, very complicated and messy usually. One trauma doesn't come alone, and so I think that it's very, very oversimplified to go into any sort of healing or any sort of therapy and expect to experience immediate remission. That is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If it quacks like a duck and if it quacks like a guru and it looks like a guru and it charges as much money as some spiritual guru, it's probably a weird ass spiritual guru.
And then be able to release. So to tie this in to Chloe's story, when there was just this moment that really stuck with me. It was before Chloe and I saw each other after 4 years. I was listening to one of her podcast episodes, and she said, like, pretty much quote for quote, I didn't have a challenging childhood. And it just stuck with me. And I remember when...
Yeah, if somebody says to me, I didn't have a challenging childhood, because maybe you just told them about your horrible upbringing, and I say, like, well, I don't really have to say anything about that. Like, I don't really had a challenging childhood. Well, then you go like, oh, well, that can't be right. Like, right? There must be something there. You're probably suppressing it and hiding it. Like, that is the natural reaction you have if someone says, like, yeah, my childhood was just kind of boring. Like, actually, even if that person is suppressing something, why would you be, like, digging into that? I don't know. But maybe if you're their boyfriend and you really, you have this kind of thing going, but it's weird.
We first came together and I saw Chloe's body. I saw very similar trauma patterns in her physical structure that I had through conversation.
So you watched her podcast, contacted her, met her in person, got together with her, and then you saw her body and you saw that she had trauma stored in her body. I said I wouldn't be sarcastic, but you guys are not making it easy for me. Like, when I look at this, I really feel sorry, because I feel sorry for her especially, because she seems like a nice person, intellectual person, studying in film school, having a wonderful YouTube channel, beautiful aesthetic, actually having a dream life, desperately to find something wrong with herself. Like, maybe the need to find something wrong with yourself is what's wrong with yourself.
Eventually, we had a dialogue where you were like, wow, I think I actually may have had some childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm. I think, like, until then, when
I didn't think I had childhood trauma until you brought it up, and now I think I do.
Of the word trauma, for me, it sounded something like really intense, someone who's gone through sexual abuse or any type of abuse.
Yeah, if you hear the word trauma, it actually sounds like something that is horrible, that traumatized you and made you a giant mess for good. That is the normal thing that normal people associate with trauma, and that is the kind of trauma we see in the clinic. We don't see people that come in with like, oh, my mother said something mean to me when I was 8. I mean, these come in too, but they're usually turned away, or they go to some low level uh, therapy, like, just go talk to a psychologist and work through your issues with them. Kind of, they don't need a clinical intervention usually, that kind of cases.
Type of like really intense grief or violence. I didn't realize that trauma is actually so much more than that, and that all of us.
Yeah, what isn't so much more than that today? Okay, here it comes. This is what I have a fundamental problem with, because that is basically what our society has become, you guys. That is what it has become. Today, like, everything is trauma. Everything is so washed out, and there's just
I don't think there's like 100% perfect parenting, and all of our parents and families have their own traumas, which most likely they haven't worked through it themselves, and it's being all passed down through generation to generation.
Oh yeah, all the parents have trauma, and they have all not properly worked through it. What's wrong with the stream now? The heck? What's going on? Okay, now it seems to work. Please let me know if there's something wrong with it. Okay, now it seems to go on. Quite. Okay, it's okay now.
It's not about putting the blame on anyone. It's about really recognizing and accepting the fact that we, as maybe beautiful as our childhood was in certain aspects, there were still like things that weren't being communicated. There were emotions that have been suppressed. And that all is trauma.
And that was my exact experience as well. I remember the first moment I saw Inge, he looked at my body, and he was like, "Wow, Ross, you've had a lot of trauma." And I like sat up, I was like, "Trauma? Like, this wasn't a part of conversations. I grew up in an affluent family, so like I grew up with the belief that everything was perfect."
Yeah, and also you grew up with.
Oh boy, I don't know what's wrong with my Wi-Fi. Anyway, you grew up in an affluent family. What the fuck?
I grew up in a, and he was like, "Wow, Ross, you've had a lot of trauma." And I like sat up, I was like, "Trauma? Like, this wasn't a part of conversations. I grew up."
Okay, so you can you hear and see everything? Like, because to me it says that the stream is not alright, and it always says like there's not enough data, it's not good quality. Like, I have no idea what is wrong here, but to me it always says like that the stream quality would be off. But just in case you can't see the stream, please write in the chat window ASAP so I can see it. Because then I'm just gonna restart the stream, because this is very annoying and I don't want this to happen to you guys, because I want you to have like a nice experience watching this. So weird. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, but let's just move on with the video here. Obviously the stream is fine, nobody is saying anything, then I'm just gonna move on with it.
In an affluent family, so like I grew up with the belief that everything was perfect.
Yeah, and
what's an affluent family?
And also you grew up with the belief that, because I grew up in a privileged environment, because of that, like, I'm not allowed to complain, like, I feel guilty and shameful.
Yeah, that is kind of how it works. If you grow up in a very privileged environment and you have everything that you need, you have a roof over your head, you have parents that care and dress you in expensive stuff, doesn't mean, you're perfectly alright. But you also cannot claim trauma if you got spanked once. That's just not how it works. That's not trauma. Like, everyone with real trauma loves about that. And yes, I think it's perfectly healthy to compare your experience with other people's experience, because that's grounding. That's just bringing you back to accepting that, some things are just not worth mentioning, making a big fuss about, and some things are just like, okay, let's just deal with it and be fine and move on and be an adult and mature into this person that is unbothered. Like, that is what I want for myself. I want to be a resilient person. I don't want to think all day long, work through every single slap that I got as a kid, this is behind me, and I don't really, I've dealt with it. I'm fine. As fine as it gets.
Even like speak up about the shit that was going on within my family, and as little or big as it was. I am myself discovering.
No. As little or big as it was, size matters. Yeah, the size of your trauma matters. Because it's really important to put that kind of stuff in perspective. To be like, yeah, maybe I had some trouble with my mom and dad. They weren't always nice to me. They said some mean things. Maybe they went through a divorce. It was horrible. I hated it. But at the end of the day, I could always come home. I had a nice home. I actually had nice parents that cared about me, And actually, I was really privileged. And there's nothing major to complain about. So I think bringing yourself back to that point is not negating your trauma or saying I don't have any issue. Like, I prefer the word issue or problem or thing to work through. I would never use the word trauma for, minor childhood things I didn't like. Or even, if your parents go through a nasty divorce. Is that awful? Yeah. Is it trauma? No, not really.
Parts of my childhood trauma, again, like memories that I completely forgot, that I completely suppressed and never allowed myself to feel.
And spoiler alert, till the end of the video, we will not get to know what trauma is. Which, again, to me is kind of a red flag, because if you're talking so intensely, I think you should share it. If you're talking so intensely about this, you should share what it actually is. What is it? What is your problem? What do you have to work through? Or at least, kind of make a little remark that lets people know what it is about. Because from this, and then saying like, oh, don't judge me. But from this, all people can see is, yeah, maybe you didn't have a 100% perfect upbringing. Maybe it was just 89% there. That is the vibe I am getting from this story she's telling. And if she really had some major shit going on in her life, and she's just downplaying that, which is not the vibe that I'm getting. I'm more getting like the vibe of, oh, I feel really awful about my childhood and I wanted to do something about it, but I actually have no reason to feel awful about it because objectively it wasn't that awful, but I still kind of wanted to go to that healer guy and spend my money there and make a video about it. If that's not that, then tell your truth. And if the truth is so awful that you don't want to speak about it, then don't make a video about it in the first place, because it's in no other part of your videos of your whole number of videos is not relevant anywhere. You didn't have to make this video.
I think that's also why in this video I'm not going in depth about exactly what happened in my childhood, because the memories are slowly coming.
No, the reason why I'm not going into depth with this is because there is no depth.
Back, and the emotions that were attached to certain memories are also coming back, so that I'm able to process and understand what happened. But that's something that I'm more than happy to talk about and share some examples of the childhood trauma that I went through in future videos once I do.
If there is a future video where she's sharing this, I'm gonna watch it and comment on it too. And I'm gonna be respectful, because that's what we do here. But right now I'm not really convinced, because it just seems as shady as this guru guy, and it doesn't really tell the viewer much about what she's working on. So just imagine somebody says to you, well, I'm going to the hospital, I'm gonna make a huge video about how I go to the hospital, and then I'm gonna get plastic surgery there, but they don't tell you for what. And after they come out and say like, I've had plastic surgery now, I feel so much better, but you can't see where. Wouldn't you be frustrated as the viewer? I think it's kind of dishonest. And it's kind of clickbaity to make a video about a topic that is not further disclosed, as in, why would you make that video in the first place? It's just pure clickbait then.
This deeper work.
And I think that right there is a very significant piece on, well, for myself at least, is why this work has been so much more transformative than talk therapy, is because
Oh yeah, talk therapy is shit. Now we talk shit about talk therapy. By the way, it's called psychotherapy, and there are all sorts of different uh, kinds of therapy, and like just this kind of pseudo intellectual demeanor of talking about something that you don't know anything about. She's a film student, and I don't know, he's probably a photographer or something. I don't think he has anything to do with the medical field. Yet it's like, oh, this is so much more effective than talk therapy because the therapist my parents sent me to when I was a troubled kid, it didn't quite do it for me. So I guess spending thousands of euros on a guru in the mountains, well, that's better. Seems
so
like
much
you
of
get
these trauma
seems like you're getting back to your parents or something.
were hidden from your memory, and my memory, because they were stored in the body, and the hiding of those memories was the protection mechanism. So the skill set of Inge, for example, his healing process is that he's able to look at somebody's body.
I get nothing out of that text.
So let's go back to
Let's just summarize. You can generate FOMO in any person if you tell them about something they are missing out on hugely and making them feel like they need this. What I think happened here is that one person told another that she had a problem she wasn't aware of, and after that, she felt like she really had a problem. That's like the people that go through the world being offended by anything and everything and being like, oh boy, there's this guy and he explained something to me. Mansplaining. Oh, there's this guy just sitting on a bus, sitting there peacefully. Manspreading. Like, oh, there's a man just existing. He's taking my spot as a woman in this world. I could have his job. Oh, well, maybe you couldn't. Shut up. Like this kind of thing. And, if you're a hardcore new age, no, not new age, what is it called? Third generation feminist, you go through the world being like, everything is a problem. Well, then everything is a problem for you. It becomes a problem because you make it one. So I don't want to go through life like a third generation feminist, and I don't want to go through life like a person that is searching for trauma with a magnifying lens. That just seems an awful way to live life for me, especially if it means that I have to spend money on people that then help me deal with the trauma that I didn't know I have in the first place.
Beginning middle of August when we first went to Germany to do the sessions. We went to Germany for 3 days, and during these 3 days I had
a lot of vlogs going on. I'm sorry.
Each session looks a little different, but basically you lay in that basic human position, laying on your back, your knees bent at 90 degrees, more or less.
Oh yeah, that's how I gave birth.
And your head slightly back and your mouth open and breathing through the mouth. The therapist,
Yeah, exactly like that.
or practitioner or doctor that I work with will tell me to do certain movements with my body and also like some synchronization.
Imagine how exposed you must feel. Like, I mean, of course you feel more vulnerable in that position. You feel everything more intensely. Like, yeah, I mean, I totally get that need for spiritual self-help and spiritual help by others, by some guru that will do something with you, touch you in a certain type of way, that you, or apply some apparatus or whatever. I totally understand where these people are coming from with their need for answers. But that is what I meant with being mature. Sometimes the answer isn't there. Sometimes there is no answer. Sometimes the answer is, well, you're just a hot mess. Go and deal with it. And sometimes the answer is just, well, yeah, it sucks, but that's life. And if you move on, you will have more from that life. You will enjoy your life more than how you would if you would just spend it thinking about this, obsessing about the problems that you have. Some call it functional depression, functioning, and functioning is just such a bad thing. But is it really? Imagine looking back on your life and say like, well, I was often depressed, but I always had an income. I always went home to my kids and made them food. I always did my best to function. Like, I would rather look back on that than say, well, I never functioned. It never worked for me. I never tried because that was so sick, and, you know, the healthier thing to do is just to give in. I don't know. I don't want to live life like that. Like, I had functional depression, and I still went and did my job. I'm not saying that you have to. If you can't, get therapy. Real therapy, not that crap. And you know, you don't have to give any excuse for feeling like shit, for being depressed to anybody. You don't have to justify yourself for not functioning. That is fine, but do something about it. We are living in an age where help is just around the corner. Like, maybe not if you're living in America, but I'm living in a social state. So, if I hear people complain that they can't find help, well, 99% of them haven't even looked, or they looked in the wrong places. So yeah, I just don't like it when people make up excuses and start on this whole I'm so dependent and I can't do anything about anything. No, you can always do something. You know, if somebody says like, I give you $1 million, would you do it? Then would you do it? If the answer is yes, then you have the ability to do something. Just imagine somebody handing you a large sum, and if that gets you off your ass, you have it in you to do something. That's like how I train when I'm in the gym, and I just train this way. I'm like, can I do another set? No, I can't. If someone would give me 10,000, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do another set, or another rep even. I couldn't. That's how I train. And then, you know, that way I know I trained hard enough.
With the body, some breathing exercises to the chest, to the belly, and also see, okay, where's the trauma block? In the first 4 sessions that I did, basically what happens in that when you...
My friends, anyone who is telling you that they can see the trauma stored in your body and feel it and know where it is, they're liars. Allegedly. Maybe there is some measurement process for this, and it's going to be a scientific method in 100 years from now. Who knows? Like, we didn't know neutrinos existed for quite some time. There is a close to 0% chance that this is legit. But for now, we're going with this being 0.
Lay down. You don't talk so much with the therapist. He will ask some questions, ask how you feel, if there's any memory popping up. Usually you have your eyes closed, and usually pretty quickly memories from the childhood come back. And you will feel all sorts of emotions coming up, like rage.
Surprise! So you're told that you have childhood trauma. You're asked to lie on your back. Like, this is so different from classic psychoanalysis, though. Like, so different. Like, what a huge difference from lying on a couch and just talking, associating. It's called free associating of memories, and just talking to your therapist. The huge difference here is that you're just lying there not talking. You're just associating freely in your head, which is basically so different from everything you do in psychoanalysis. Like, oh, well, extreme difference here. Like, this is talk therapy is so overrated. Yeah, interesting.
Anger, aggression.
Oh, and then after you are primed with this being the healing for your childhood trauma, after you are primed with that, childhood memories come back. Surprise!
Sadness, fear, and as you re-immerse yourself in those memories and in those feelings mostly, the body will start maybe like crunching itself, so it will have a lot of
Holy shit.
crunches. Like, that's what happened for me in the first time I went there. Like, my body would like lift itself up completely off the mat. It was not me like controlling anything.
Yeah, you're totally not doing this. Yeah, your body is releasing the trauma.
You feel pretty tired after the session, so you go to sleep.
Let's just
What
watch
came out,
this one more
it
time.
was not me like crunches. Like that's what happened for me in the first time I went there. Like my body would like lift itself up completely off the mat. It was not me like controlling.
Is she having the hiccups or something? Did you see this? One more time.
Itself, so it will have a lot of crunches. Like that's what happened for me in the first time I went there. Like my body would like.
Yeah, there's no way she's doing this for the camera. Like it also it occurred like coincidentally with her just filming herself randomly in the car, having the camera on like in a stable position in the car. Do you know how hard it is to place your camera in a car in a way that it doesn't fall over? Like even if you have like a nice tripod or something, that's actually pretty difficult. And well, this is going on with your body and you just place your camera there. Well, you had it all the time there because you're a vlogger, so you're vlogging, so yeah, no questions asked, this camera just was there and you were able to hit the button, no problem, while having these seizures. Sure. I mean, there is an about 1% chance that this is legit. As I said, it's all alleged here. Maybe she had some sort of seizure, or what did she call it? Cracking, crumbling. Her body was crumbling and releasing the trauma or whatever. I mean, yeah, sure. The physical reaction to that kind of thing is thinkable. Let me tell you a little story from when I had my kid. Afterwards, I was often shaking. It was stress release. I talked to my midwife about this. I was having these intense shiverings, as in I was just losing a lot of weight. And when I was, this is not me in the video. This is another person. You have to be specific with your questions. I don't really know what you're talking about. What do you mean? But thanks for saying something in the chat window. I like when the chat window is filling up. So I was just talking about how when I had my kid and I was a new mom, I often was shivering quite intensely, and I felt like I was freezing and shaking, and just especially at night, I felt like I would release, stress in that way. And I think that's normal, and that's a normal stress release reaction that can happen. And maybe that is what happened to her here. But I just think you should not make it more than it is. Just like, yeah, you release some stress. It was stressful. You were reminded of your memories or whatever, and it was a little bit stressful. Why not? Sure. Is it trauma though? Okay, we're gonna end this soon here because I'm getting annoyed.
Completely off the mat. It was not me like controlling anything. You feel pretty tired after the session, so you go to sleep. Basically, what came out of the.
So yeah, you feel super tired from lying down on your back and think about your childhood. That's an issue you should talk to your therapist about, actually.
First time that I went there.
Because actually being tired from something and this sort of fatigue, this is often an indicator of being overwhelmed and not having learned practical coping strategies in your life. So you should go out of your way to learn coping strategies.
It was that I had a trauma in my childhood that between the age of.
Just imagine her saying issues instead of trauma. Every single time she inflationary blown out of proportion, uses this word trauma. Just imagine that every time she uses the word trauma, she just says issues or problems, which would just be so much more adequate here.
8 and 12, my body completely stopped developing into adult mode, like it went very slightly into puberty, but then it stopped. And that shows in how the body fat is like shared in the body. My upper body and my own digestive system is the body of a 12-year-old. My digestive.
Did you hear what I hear? Did you hear what I just heard?
body, my whole upper body, and my own digestive system is the body of a 12-year-old.
Her whole upper body and her digestive system is that of a 12-year-old. So your digestive system is better than it actually is, because, you know, the digestive system of a 12-year-old is basically a healthy system. I would love to have the digestive tract of a 12-year-old. That is something you want. And tiny boobs, yeah, I take that too. Like, that's practical. If you ever run a marathon, you know how practical tiny tits are. But I think this kind of is a little bit offensive here to say that, as in, because you experienced some trauma. Let's just assume for a second she did. That would have made your body stay stuck in the state of a 12-year-old, as in no tits and problems digesting stuff, and only the upper body, you know, and what is even the upper body? Is it the upper thorax, or is the uterus also affected by this? Because, you know, if you say the lower body is just your legs, then it also affects your uterus. Yeah, that's huge. Like, are you saying you never produce any hormones? Because you look like a woman to me with, you know, secondary female markers, like your face and how you look. So if you watch a video from her now, after she had underwent this healing, I'm not going to call this stuff therapy. After she has underwent these procedures, now this is filmed in 2021, not quite a year ago, a little bit less. I'm just baffled about how old this is. So now when we go into the future and look at her newer videos, are we going to see her have grown some massive boobies? Or, you know, what is happening to her body after she, you know, her upper body has then undergone puberty? Like, I'm saying this quite, you know, if I take all of this literally, because she is being so genuine about it, she really feels that. I'm just being literal here. Because if she says she really missed out on her puberty, that's huge. You probably should get a brain scan. But, you know, like, there are actually diseases that do that. And, you know, if you feel like you got stuck at some point, you didn't reach puberty, what you should do is see an endocrinologist, not a German healer. Oh boy, I don't know, this is so upsetting. And again, this goes to the fact that spewing this kind of pseudo-science and pseudo-healing information online, this attracts a very vulnerable audience. Here we go. Man, I really like this channel.
Digestive system and everything hasn't developed like it should have. Also, one huge thing was that I constantly had my shoulder.
And again, she's not even being specific about this. Like, your digestive system and your upper body, like including the girls, did not develop properly how it should have. What does that mean? Like, enlighten us. Tell us, what does that mean? It's so vague. That is like when someone is reading your future with the crystal ball and saying, you're gonna meet a man. What kind of man? A wonderful man. Shut up!
Shoulders in, and all of that part of my body was really closed, and it was a problem. It was something that I've had ever since I was 5 or 6. My shoulders are not relaxed, and they were like forward, and that's just a protection mechanism.
Yeah, I agree. That actually is a little bit of a protection mechanism, because this side is the more sensory side of your body. As you can, you know, if you take your arm, for instance, and here you have more nerve endings, basically, than on the outside of your arm. Like, if you cover yourself you should do this and not this. Or maybe you do this because the arms are not that sensitive, but you just take your back and the front of your body. Way more sensitive, way more nerve endings. Like you can do the stick test. How can I show this? Like you can take 2 sticks or something, or 2 fingers, and just point them and say, for how long can you tell them apart? Can you resolve this? Like, is it 2 or is it 1? And so on my front, I can still, with closed eyes and without, if somebody would do this, I would still be able to tell them apart here. But if you do the same thing on your back, if you have somebody do this on your back, it's gonna blow your mind how few nerve endings and how little of a resolution you have for sensory input on your back. So try that, do that experiment. That is actually a pretty interesting experiment. You can do that with your child, with your spouse, with your fellow med students, friends, and blow their minds, because that's actually a really cool experiment. And so yeah, what I'm saying is this side of your body is actually legitimately less sensitive to sensory input. And it makes sense that if you crouch over just to protect yourself from being injured, that makes sense. I know you see that a lot in people who are self-conscious, who are, I don't like that word. I actually think self-conscious should be translated as being conscious of yourself and therefore aware and proud. But for some reason, English-speaking people use self-conscious as being questioning that. So it's really weird to me that this word is used in that way, but that's what I mean. So if you are insecure about your height, for instance, we had a lot of huge girls in school, and they were always walking like this, hiding their boobs and just like not being comfortable with being a developed teenager and being like looking like a woman already. So, and they were kind of uncomfortable with that, while everybody else was just stuffing their bras, So yeah, but that is normal, and you should outgrow this at some point and be like, yeah, I'm 1 meter and 80 centimeters, so I'm a large woman, I'm cool. I can reach the top shelf. Like, at some point, you should make that development and be like, being big is awesome. And yeah, I just wish that to anybody, I wish her the best in her journey, actually. Want her to live the best life that she can and be positive. But actually, I watched a bunch of videos of her after that, and she still walked around like this. Nothing really changed. I think in once she tried, but yeah, just get a back trainer. Like, that will do it. You don't have to pay a bunch of grand on this healer, dude. You just get a back trainer for $50 from Amazon.
All that part was completely closed and very small and very protected, and it looked fearful and little girl, and all of that opened within the 4 first sessions.
But again, this is holy. Okay. Again, this is not a flattering shot either. Yeah, this is prettier. Sorry, Chloe. Want to be respectful here. Again, I think that this is very, very consistent actually with classical psychotherapy. You can see people locked in the behavior, what we know from therapy, from science. You can see people locked in that kind of childish behavior, and they never matured, never outgrew that behavior that they adopted in their early childhood. And then when 2 adults are fighting and they have never matured, it's like a 7-year-old is fighting with a 4-year-old. And then the therapist helps those people to develop adult skills and get the fuck over it, okay? So, and I really think that understanding that is just so important. And by believing in this mumbo-jumbo healing stuff, you are taking away that opportunity from yourself to go into that kind of deep understanding of yourself. I mean, obviously, you're obsessed with your self-development, with yourself. You are thinking a lot about yourself. That's not healthy, but I mean, you obviously want to work on yourself. That is something you're very interested in. I prefer to go into to the mountains and just just walk for a bunch of hours or a day, and then the bad thoughts are washed out. So maybe you should try that. But you did try that, so it didn't help. Maybe, I don't know. You didn't do it often enough. But I think you're just robbing yourself of this opportunity, and I think you might just not have met the right therapist. And I understand how annoying that can be, but man, I feel so sorry for this girl having this experience.
Open, so like I would have like bones popping out a few weeks later, actually about a month later.
What the fuck? I don't know. I don't know. This is just different lighting. Also, she's so frail. But yeah, this is different lighting, different setting. I see the same bone here as I see here. Maybe she lost some weight, or she took diuretics, or nobody can tell if that is from that. Like, that proves nothing, sorry. I mean, it just doesn't.
Because the whole rib cage is opening. It's an emotional process through your trauma, but
it's a physical process. If anything, it's a physical process induced by a thought process. And that's fine to say, that it's legit to say. You can change your posture. For instance, let's just think of people who have body dysmorphia and trans people, for instance, and they go through surgery or something, change their whole life, live and then become the opposite sex, and the body dysmorphia is reduced, and they feel more proud of themselves and say like, now I finally feel good with my chest, now that the boobs are gone, whatever, I feel better about myself now. I feel like going like this. Before I was always walking like this. This is legit. Or maybe somebody who had tiny boobs, who was always very insecure about that, and then they went and had therapy, and the therapist helped them to understand that the size of your boobs is irrelevant and that you don't need to waste a lot of money on surgery. And then they understood that and were like, yeah, amazing, this therapist saved me so much money, and also I'm happy with my body now, woohoo, I'm walking like this now. Like, that's the kind of positive thing you want for yourself, that I absolutely want for everybody who's watching this. You're insecure about your body or your belly rolls, whatever you have, I have a little bit of loose skin from my pregnancy, and when I go to the beach, I don't want I don't want to care about what other people think and be like, oh, this woman, she looks like she had a baby. Yeah, dude. I mean, that's just what it is. And the process of being a mature woman is to make peace with that kind of shit and just live it.
Reopens the body because the trauma is being stored in the body. I felt amazing.
This has nothing to do with your trauma. This is everything to do with the guy telling you that you dealt with your trauma.
In that first time that I went there, because there was so much that opened up. Even if we didn't necessarily always pinpoint what exactly happened in my childhood, there's a lot of memories that came back, and a lot of rage came back. Actually, a lot of rage came back even just right before my first session with Inge, and it was really crazy.
Inge. That's a German female name. Inge, so Ingeborg. Sure that's a dude? Inge, really weird. Okay.
I'm not going to go into depth about what happened, but I really felt like this wave of fear that then really quickly transformed into rage and anger. It was something that never happened to me, and when I shared that with him, he was like, yeah.
That is actually also pretty natural. Most people cannot feel rage and sadness at the same time, or that one feeling can kind of clog the other, and just that's normal, that feelings cannot coexist sometimes in people, and that is a sign that you're going to to phases of grief, for instance, and that you are going from one phase to the next, and that's actually processing of trauma as well. That is a legit claim here, I would say. But it doesn't happen in days. Usually, it's more like weeks.
Well, your body knew it was coming here, and already like stuff was coming up. It's pretty insane. At that time, like I didn't have any like particular beliefs to it or anything. So in the first time, I felt
No, sure you didn't have any beliefs when you went into this. Like, you just went to a potentially pretty expensive kind of treatment with no expectations. Just like, I have a bunch of thousands to spend, you know. I mean, I assume that this was in the thousands range. Let's just assume this. Even if it was in the hundreds, it would be expensive. For a film student, like, I don't know, when I was a student, I didn't have that much money, but maybe she's rich, I don't know. She certainly has good camera gear, but I mean, you know, even if you have the money, it's a lot of money to spend. Like, couldn't you just give it to a cat shelter and like, I think that would heal all of my trauma. If I had so much money that I could just spend 3K on a cat shelter, I would feel better about myself after, surely.
a lot of anger and rage come back up, but at the same time I felt amazing because I felt so much power. I felt like I was taking up so much more space, and I just felt so much better and more grown up in my body.
You know, people in 2021, when this was filmed, in 2022, in the foreseeable future, people will still do anything and everything. Spend money on the most ridiculous stuff, anything and everything, but working on themselves and going through therapy, and, you know, they will do anything and everything, buy crystals, rather than work on themselves and be honest with themselves.
So I would say, like, overall it was very transformative and positive in the first time that I was there. I'm gonna go back home to Switzerland today, but first we're gonna have a nice picnic here by the bumfuck of nowhere, bumfuck of Germany. It's actually really close to the Austrian border.
It looks like the place where I'm hiking usually. Yeah, it looks pretty. I should totally check that out.
We drove here yesterday. I did 4 sessions last time. Now I did 2. I did 1 last night when we arrived, and I was really tired in that one, so we didn't really like push it. And then I just had one right now. It's about noon, and I have another one tonight.
No more cracking. You can walk like a normal person. That's really good. Good for you.
And maybe tomorrow morning, but it will depend on how it goes in tonight. My experience here this time, like with the training, is a bit different than it was last time, I have to say. I'm curious to find out why. I mean, there's so much work we probably did already also last time. I also was tired because of the race on Sunday. So yeah, my body was pretty much shattered yesterday after pretty much a 5-hour race on Sunday and then a 10-hour drive on Monday.
Does anyone know what she actually had done? Like, until now, I don't know whether she got some electrodes put on her body. She just lay there being touched. She just brought memories back. She was just lying there and just memorizing. I still have no idea what this magical therapy is, but yeah.
On Monday, like, I was like out. What Inge said to me today is that, so yesterday he told me that I didn't have one of the 4 main traumas, which are sexual abuse, being locked, like, in a
Even the guru told her that she has none of the 4 major traumas. Main trauma. I'm sorry, but what the fuck? Hey, your therapy told you there's basically nothing wrong with you. You're just a spoiled kid. And then even the guru guy that is basically ripping off rich people allegedly, for not having real problems, told you that you don't have any real problems. But yeah, here you go, making a video about it because it's so significant to the rest of your channel. Sorry, but
a cage or
what
in
the
a dark
fuck?
room, physical violence and forced eating. He said, like, it wasn't maybe like one of them.
Oh yeah, forced eating on the same level as child abuse. Great standards here. Like, what is forced eating? As in force fed through a tube, or are we talking your parents telling you to eat up your plate? Like, that's also trauma? Like, I don't get it. Is that trauma? Well, then the Generation X is extremely traumatized by that standards. Like, your standards for trauma are just so low. holy shit. Okay, let's read the chat. She's only worried about what wrong happened to her, but not what good things also happen along with. I mean, I don't know, maybe I think she's being genuine in this. I think she truly believes this, and that is what actually makes this so, problematic. She's not reflecting on this well. She didn't do a lot of introspection as you would have been taught how to do in classical therapy. And there are many, many branches of therapy, psychosomatic medicine and stuff like that, which is very modern. You don't have to rely on a couch. There are so many forms of therapy, group therapy, specialized. Yet she would have found something had she looked for it. I don't know. I just think this is so sad. And, and I get this vibe from like melancholia driven teenagers. We all had this phase when we were teenagers, as in like listening to sad music to make us more sad, like digging into your own non-trauma to be more sad, and making it more than it is, just to have a reason to be more sad and not happy about life and not be happy in a relationship or something, to always have something to work on. That also gives your life meaning in a really crooked way, but I mean, it does. If you always feel like you're incomplete and you're not there yet and you're not mature, like, I also sometimes feel that way, and I feel that intense sadness is a very productive thing sometimes even. But when I look at my child, the one thing that I want to be is a responsible adult. Somebody who is done with making up their mind about certain values and certain important things in life, and I just want to be there and live that life and be okay with that life. I don't want to sit through trauma after trauma and problem after problem and contemplate on that on a daily basis. I don't have time for that.
But it's more like, it's hardcore because it's really within, and it's like my emotions. At one point in my childhood and teenagers, I reacted in a way so I would stop feeling anything, because anything that I would feel wasn't being heard, understood, or empathized with. And that's how I...
You were ignored as a child. So you were a child. Yeah, I think to a certain extent it's normal to ignore what your 4-year-old is saying, because it's not all super interesting. I do not think that she was ignored through her whole childhood, because if she was, she would not be where she is right now. Or she would have worked on it. She would have had to work on it so hard that she would actually have the resilience to be okay with it and not be that person that seeks this kind of enlightenment through others. Because if you actually have gone through that kind of hard childhood and survived it, you're not like this.
Reacted, and is the process of understanding why I did that, and at that time it was the right thing to do, and really forgiving myself, feeling like, Chloe, you did the right thing at that time. It caused a lot of harm.
I do think though that she has a legit point here when she says like that it's important to be soft with your... What do you think of my window setup? Is this good or is this not so great?
But you did it because you wanted to survive. He started talking to me about the process of fragmentation, which I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, and I want to ask him about it.
Okay. I actually think now it's getting interesting again. Okay, the process of fragmentation. You all know what a hard drive is? If you don't, that's a hard drive. Back in the day, when we didn't have solid-state disks, there were real disks inside there, multiple disks. That's actually why this is so big, because it has multiple disks. It's not a solid-state disk, it's a hard drive. And there's a little arm that goes over this and just writes the data on it, whenever you access it. And so your hard drive works in a way that whenever there's like an end, it just starts writing data there, like on a CD, DVD. It starts writing data with at the end of it where there's free space, and just filling up this hard drive. And that way, when you delete something, it gets deleted in the sector where it is. But this sector then is not written on. And when this happens a lot, you delete a lot of data, then there are chunks of, spaces, free spaces, where there is just no data stored. It's just deleted blocks of zeros, of data that is missing. And then, this area kind of isn't used anymore, and that's called fragmentation. And what you had to do with old hard drives is to defragment them. This process is called defragmentation. It's just basically healthcare for your hard drive, and you had to do it every once in a while, and that would mean that all the data would be rearranged and reassigned to new blocks and just stored there, so that it would become this big, huge chunk of data without any holes in it and not looking like a Swiss cheese. No pun intended for Chloe, being from Switzerland, I think. But yeah, so this is what I think of when somebody says fragmentation. I think of what's happening to an old hard drive. So let's see what she is talking about.
I think what's been happening is that he's seeing, like, I don't know honestly, but like my perception and from what he told me through what I've been through, now we can go deeper, but it's also emotions are going to come much more vivid, and we don't want that I end up crying in a bed feeling unsafe for 6 weeks. So he's kind of like easing it in and like not doing too much
Oh man, I really hope she would say what fragmentation is or what she thinks it is. I don't know. Just memories coming in, I guess.
deep work at once, because we have a move, like we're going to South Africa in literally 4 days to make sure that I can still handle the process and the healing of it. We were starting to get deeper into the healing and into the trauma. One process that was starting to happen and that would continue for the future months, basically. And that process he called fragmentation.
Now it's getting interesting. Let's see what fragmentation is. Because I think they should call it defragmentation if they want to make the memories contiguous again. Okay, but if you're a guru, you don't have your terminology down. Yeah, I'm judging you anyway, and I'm judging everything about you and your weird practices. If you're that kind of guru and you don't, and then this is one aspect that you don't even have your terminology down, well, that just fits the picture, I guess.
And it took me quite a while to understand what that meant, but I think now I have more understanding of what
Red flag. If you don't understand a scientific theory, then either your professor is shit and not explaining it well to you, but a good scientific theory should be so clear that you can explain it to a 10-year-old. If you can't do that and the 10-year-old can then explain it back to you, your theory is either shit or you're bad at explaining it.
Fragmentation really is, because I've experienced it. So we came to South Africa, there was a lot of move and transition. It was really difficult not to have.
And that is another thing, when people start claiming that you can only understand something after you've experienced it, maybe having a period, childbirth, how it is to have a penis. I cannot experience that, for instance. I did experience childbirth though, but I had an epidural, so, you can argue with me that I don't know what the real thing is like, and I don't want to know. But some things, you should at least be able to explain. Like, if I want to explain to you how painful it is, I would say well, just imagine the worst pain you can have, but it being weirdly productive. And to some level, you can then understand what I mean. Like, giving birth to a kid is not like a migraine. A migraine feels useless. But that kind of cramps that you have, that just feel like they are productive in a very weird way. And that is the odd thing that stuck out to me when I was going through that. And yeah, I think you should always be able to explain to others what something means. And if that guru couldn't even explain his own method to his patient, red flag.
Something simple for the first 2 weeks. And then basically what happened is that we moved into this house. It felt like, great, now I can settle. And a couple days later, I get COVID. I'm not going to go in depth about what it was like to have COVID or how I feel and how I...
Of course you don't.
I felt and...
why would you go in depth about why you got COVID and how you got COVID and... Why is it? I mean, if you don't want to go in depth and if it's not relevant to the video, then why did you even mention it? Like, how is it relevant then?
But I have to mention that because all of these things have been intertwined, unfortunately. But yeah, I get COVID. I get
Sure. Okay.
pretty sick, although I had what you would consider mild symptoms of COVID.
What is it? You got sick or you had mild symptoms? Like, you got really sick, then it's moderate symptoms. If you just had a runny nose and felt like the flu, not the influenza, just the flu, not the real flu, that it was mild symptoms. If you had to be on a respirator, severe symptoms, okay? So you don't look like you were on a respirator.
I barely had any fever, had barely any cough, but I lost my sense
Yeah, that's a flu.
of smell and taste, and I had...
But it came back, so nothing really happened. It was basically like a flu.
24 hours of terrible ache in my body.
Dude, my husband had to push heparin for 2 weeks and was really sick, and I was shaking for weeks and had fevers for weeks. Like, you fucking kidding me? Like, and his case was called a mild case, so shut up. I'm not a COVID warrior or anything, but I mean, I'm a healthcare worker, former nurse. I don't know, people, describe your medical stuff in proper medical terms or don't describe it, okay? Just if you can't say anything correct about it, then don't say anything. Like, it does less harm to this society and all the wrong information that's out there.
Especially my lower back and lower body, and then about a few days of not really like intense fever, but some sort of fever because I had night sweats and things like that. And
okay, fever is classified after, like, if you have like 83.5 Celsius degrees, okay, you can call it a fever. I mean, you can look up the definition. That's the definition that I learned in a hospital where I worked for many years. That is the definition that we used. There is high fever, you know, and there is like critical fever, and you know, you don't want to be in the 40s of fever. That's very dangerous, can be very dangerous. And yeah, so, but if you have a 73 point something, we call that subfebrile, like not really a fever. So either you have a fever or you don't, just use the proper definition. Most people go with either 38.0 or 38.5 as a definition of a fever, and below that it's called subfebrile, which is like 37.6 to 38 or 38.5. That is what you would call a higher body temperature or elevated temperature, and not like a huge fever. So just, you know, this kind of stuff, we live in the age of information. Everybody can look that up by Googling once. If you are an influencer, you're putting out content out there, you should be able to look that kind of stuff up. There's the medical definitions are out there, you know. Just like, do you have a fever or not? Just, and if you're not sure, you know, what to call it, because I hear people argue even in the medical field about that. Some say oh, it's a 38, it's fever, and some say no, that's not really a fever, and also it depends on how you feel. You know, then just put the temperature in the video, and then, you know, people can judge for themselves. But maybe you didn't even take your temperature because, you know, you had COVID and you were so sick, so why would you take a temperature, right?
Just overall, like, feeling really fatigued and tired. And while I was having COVID, I felt a lot.
By the way, after like 4 days after moving into another continent, you felt a little fatigued and tired while you had COVID with the symptoms of a flu. Yeah, I mean, life.
A lot of emotional ups and downs, but like to the point where I thought I was going insane. It's been a week now, almost, since I started having symptoms. Yeah, as you can see, you know, I'm not really there. And have some time.
If you're a YouTuber and you feel like you're not really there, just do yourself and your followers a favor and don't film it. I mean, I have some embarrassing moments that I filmed like on my hikes, for the purpose of, you know, a continuous story. I included that stuff, but I think like if you're not feeling yourself and you're just vlogging it, you know, it's not really part of the story or anything. Just make a video and said you felt not so good the other day. If you are drunk, are you gonna film it? If you are lying in bed snorting, I mean, like, oh, we're all for authenticity, but I don't know. I think it's a means to an end at this point.
To go insane, which is the part I'm going through right now, and the part to go back towards myself, or whatever that is, because like whoever that is, I don't even know who I am anymore.
It's bad, guys. Like, I feel like I'm losing neurons. Like, I feel like someone punched me in the brain and like it exploded inside my head and remained.
Did she say I'm losing urines? No, she said I'm losing neurons. Yeah, you probably are. You know, whenever you have a jet lag, you are. Whenever you're not sleeping enough, you are, and they're not growing back.
As a puree.
So don't better not get up early in the morning. It's just killing brain cells.
They would have moments of like being so down and so low.
Total absence. Like where I'd just be staring in the emptiness for an hour and a half.
Do you think anyone with 1,000 subscribers can pull off that level of non-content? I'm just asking for a friend here. But do you actually think that if you don't have a huge forgiving following that is absolutely loyal to you and eats up your content because you're pretty and they love to look at you and follow your story and your life, do you actually think that shit would fly? Because I don't. I think like this kind of hot mess kind of stuff, it always flies with pretty influencer chicks, but every person in the real world, if you had some real friends, they would probably tell you like, hey Chloe, maybe just go home, lay down, you know. And don't film a video about it.
Moving in an uncomfortable position sometimes. Moments where I just like cry like something terrible has happened. Or someone was trying.
I'm not 20 years older than her, but I feel like I want to go over and mother her a little bit. Just like give her a pep talk or something. I don't know. Where is your mom? I want to talk to her.
To kill me.
And then I would have moments where I would just goof around and it wouldn't make any sense. And it was pretty intense. Like there was no sense of normality, of stability. Like it was all over the place.
Can you imagine making this kind of video and your parents be watching? Like all the videos that I make, I always think like, what would my dad or my mom think? If you're watching, hey, like I always keep that in mind, like with my videos, and also in my old company where I worked, a bunch of my co-workers also watched my videos, and I always kept that in mind. So like, is this shit, would I say the kind of shit to their faces? Or is it just like on the internet where you have a huge forgiving audience that just, you know, is at your lips wanting you to feed them more content? And I don't really think that this kind of exploitation of your own oddity flies in the real world. But let's read the comments for a second. Hey, nice to see you again. Haven't been around for ages. Hope you and your family are okay. Yeah, thank you so much. We're actually quite good. Also, we're back in Germany and just living our life. I'm filming more videos now, and I'm doing the live streams for, you know, yeah, I'm just experimenting with that. And a bunch of people asked me to do a reaction, and this is a video that I found, and I was like, yeah, I always wanted to say something about this kind of stuff because I think it's problematic, and I like the icky, problematic things that are a little bit controversial. And I also want to add to this kind of minimalism space and not be one of these super spiritual eco barefoot walkers. I just want to be me and share my views on this platform, because I don't know, I'm not into that kind of super spiritual minimalism. So this is an influencer here I follow for quite some time, and I really liked her content. But when it gets ultra spiritual, I'm out. I'm not against being spiritual. I do yoga. I think it's part of the deal to connect with yourself and be in tune with your body and your mind and reach some sort of enlightenment at some point. But doesn't mean that you have to go to some German guru to get your non-existing trauma fixed.
This fragmentation process that I had started back in Germany will take all these emotions that have been suppressed throughout your life, so most likely in your childhood, but then also maybe early teens. All of these feelings that have been repressed and hidden will come to the surface, and that's the only way you can heal is through feeling that shit that has been hidden and that has been like pushed down.
So fragmentation means that all that shit comes up to the surface and then you deal with it. Dude, stop using words that already have a proper definition and using them in your weird ultra spiritual new age realm. No, these words belong in IT. Just what the fuck? Maybe philosophy had them before IT had them. Maybe we should ask a philosopher. They are first with most terminology.
So long, and that's basically the fragmentation process. Is that parts of yourself that were hidden now are coming up to the surface, so you can feel them, and through feeling them, that's how you release. And it is very normal.
I mean, it could mean that, if you use fragmentation and they say like it's broken up and then it's floating to the surface of the lake of self, and it's up there and you just have to pick it up. It's just, I don't know, metaphors, weird. Okay, move on.
That through the fragmentation process, you experience a lot of ups and downs because all of these emotions are being put back into circulation into the organism, and it's scary. And then I have this process going on, and
though I think I want to make an annotation at this point, because I think this is also this is pretty problematic, and let's just get into let's move on.
Then on top you add COVID and my immune system being like down, really down, like I couldn't comprehend what.
Girl, if you have COVID, your immune system is up there. At least if you have a functioning immune system.
Was happening. I didn't have like physical or mental strength. So
also you can see what your immune system is doing if you have your blood work taken. Otherwise, if you don't have any blood work taken, you don't have any, inflammation markers, anything, just don't claim you know anything about your immune system. Just shut up.
That would make these emotions like way more intense than what they are.
Yeah, your immune system is not making your emotions more intense. The stress that you undergo because you're sick might make your emotions be more stressful to you. It's a stress response. Don't mess up medical stuff just because it sounds cool and relatable.
And way more hard to like handle and live with because I had so many other symptoms going on. From these like drastic ups and downs, I transitioned then into a state of complete numbness. It is something that I feel like I've never experienced in my life. I've never felt like this in my entire life. And just saying this, I feel like, no, that's not the truth. I've probably felt like that in some way, but I never really allowed myself to fully feel it. And it came so strong, my body went in a complete like numb freeze mode, which is one of the nervous system reactions.
What is this? Like the freeze trauma response. Completely numb is... What is this? I can't read it. It's so small. Endless social media scrolling and binge watching, procrastination, confusion. Yeah, it sounds like psychological issues, trauma response. Yeah, I mean, sure. Slightly valid. Wouldn't phrase it that way. I think using the correct terminology is important. Just subsuming a bunch of problems under a made-up name and say that it's a thing Does it make it a valid diagnosis? You also don't need a diagnosis to just say you feel like shit. You can just feel like shit without any diagnosis and just talk about it just like that from your own perspective, in your own words, without just using medical terminology to make it sound more sincere and severe. You can just talk about your experience and your reality in the words that you have. You don't need to use words that medical professionals use in a different context to make yourself sound more sophisticated. I don't really think you need that.
Action mode. There is fight, flight, freeze, and phone. I will include that in the description so you guys can read about it. But basically, that's.
I mean, I think this is, this is a legitimate claim, somewhat. I just don't think that we should normalize procrastination and scrolling and put it into the same pot. Just if you have a procrastination problem, you have a procrastination problem. If you are unable to deal with your everyday life because you experience a flashback from your trauma, go and see help. Go see somebody. If you cannot afford somebody, that's something else, but I don't think that is the issue here. At this point, just being there and say like, I don't need intervention, but I can still film it and talk about it and make a video about it and post 10 different Instagram pictures and stories, that was not a problem. It kind of seems insincere to me.
I was experiencing the freeze nervous system response to trauma like big time, and I'm still experiencing it a little bit now. I'm not like fully back to normal, but it's a lot better. And this like freeze mode is a huge protection mechanism, like all of these other nervous system response. I guess like the ups and downs were so intense and my immune system was so low that my body protected itself by just feeling numb. And also,
this is a valid stress response, so I'm not devalidating that. I think it's okay to talk about something like that, especially if you're a vlogger and the only content that you do is your own life and how you're living it, which is partially what I'm doing too. So I'm sympathetic here with her. The stuff that she says, I just don't like how she frames it. As in, I don't like how she does that in the whole context of this pseudo-therapy.
So sure that, and I know that there's so many times in my past, in my childhood, where I froze and where I was in that nervous system response of freezing, of feeling numb or retracting myself from a situation that was triggering, feeling all of that back up again, but like a huge wave that like you can't just get rid of. It was really crazy and very intense, and there was like this feeling of like I didn't understand the point of life anymore, like I didn't even feel myself.
I want to say I had, but I'm having an identity crisis.
That's actually a good word for what all of this is. Yeah, identity crisis. Actually, psychologists and psychiatrists often assign identity disorder or identity distortion or something like that. I don't know what the translation of this is, to patients that they don't really know what to do with, but they need to write something on the sheet for the medical insurance company. So they write down identity disorder oftentimes. I hope I didn't, blab out something that the medical community doesn't want me to blab out, but I've actually heard a bunch of people say that in the clinical context. So whenever you don't feel like your true self, just go with identity disorder. It's probably accurate.
I don't even know if that's the right term, but whatever. That's what we'll use for now. And I'm safe.
That's a recurring theme here. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm still talking about it. Okay, you go, girl. I don't know. Really, seriously, this is my just legit reaction to this girl. If I would talk to her as a friend, we're not friends, but I don't know her, even though she lives pretty close. But I don't know her. But if she was my friend, my sister or something like that, I would sit her down and have a talk with her. We'd be chill. Like this YouTube context where just I am commenting on her and she has no way to talk back and explain herself and be defensive or be cool, which is way better than being defensive in any kind of debate. It's always better than being defensive to say like, oh yeah, I acknowledge what you say, let me work with it. But she does not have the opportunity to do that right here. So Chloe, if you are watching this at some point in your life and you're like, hey, this chick is so mean, what does she want with her 1,000 something subscribers? Like, I'm gonna roast her and post her in my story. I don't know. I hope you don't do that. That would be really mean. That's actually an open invitation, because if you are over this shit at this point, Chloe, if you are over this, or you're kind of more of a critical thinker right now, well, let's have a talk. I would love to have you on my podcast, talk about your journey and how you maybe got over this stuff, and, be more explicit about what your actual trauma was, maybe, if you want to. Because I think that would help. Or also, like, if you realize at this point, like, I'm just a spoiled kid and I didn't actually have any real trauma, but I was just so into being sad and I wanted to talk about it, and I just felt lonely. That's legit too, That's legit too. But I think that more influencers should just come forward and be honest about their past mistakes and be like, this was such bullshit. Because I think that is being the bigger person. I think actually your viewers would admire that. You would not make fun of yourself. You would not make yourself a fool if you came out and be like, remember that video of mine? I feel so stupid about that right now. Like, I don't know if she did a video like that. If she does, all the power to her, kudos to her. I'm not saying, I didn't actually watch all videos. I didn't find anything that sounded like it on her channel, and I wanted to make that live stream today, so because tomorrow I don't have time for it, probably, most likely. So yeah, but my invitation to you, if you ever want to come and talk, debate with me, I would be interested in that. I'm open to that kind of stuff.
It's great. I feel like I'm pretty honest on this channel. I feel like I'm myself. I feel like I share things of my life and whatnot.
You do. You certainly do.
But I feel like there's a part of myself that I kind of don't share. I don't know even how to explain it myself, honestly.
There
it's
is?
part of myself that I suppressed for so long. Okay, I'm just...
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Not a flattering shot here. Sorry, Chloe. There is a part you're not sharing about yourself. Yeah, I think you're not sharing the part of yourself that is doubting all this crap.
Realizing what I'm saying right now doesn't make any sense. I just started this video saying I have COVID, and now we're talking about a part of myself that disappeared that, like, now is miraculously coming back.
I know that feeling though. When you started a vlog and then you started another vlog and another day, and you think like, oh, maybe this is gonna be another video, and then you're like, I started this video. Yeah, I know that feeling. Man.
What the fuck is going on? Ross, do you want to try to explain to them what's happening to me these days?
Oh my god. Oh, you're getting the bad angle on my nose.
Okay, sorry. Is that better?
Oh yeah, that's important stuff here. I think he's an influencer too. He's some sort of influencer.
The Jewish genes, y'all.
It's okay. It's okay. We love you.
I don't know, babe. You gotta answer this one. She's gone.
Shalom, dude.
This is so self-explanatory.
I'm surprised you had the courage to put yourself on camera. I'm proud of you.
We're going through a rough patch.
I want to be on camera.
Okay, I'm going through a rough patch, and Ross
Chloe, you're always going through a rough patch.
has to keep up with it, and that's the reality of life right now.
By the way, I don't mean this as a joke. If you always feel like you're going through a rough patch, therapy, my friends. Go get a therapist. Maybe get a cheap therapist. Maybe just go on a hotline or to group sessions, if that's not available to you monetarily. But trust me, your mental health is an investment you will not regret long term.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean go to some weird guru and invest there. Invest in your actual self by doing something that is done in a controlled environment by professionals that are legitimized by an actual education in a system that, takes care of standards, holding up standards in this education. If you don't know what the standardization process and the standard system is, medical standards in general, read up on that, then you know what I mean. It's not just empty words.
There's something that needs to heal inside there, and inside here, and inside everywhere around me, and inside of me, and it's only the beginning, so, well, if you guys are ready for the ride, keep on watching. I felt like the inside of myself was removed, and then we had to put some new person into my shell of my body, and I didn't know
well, I was in that
Every alien abduction reporting weirdo on the internet ever, but okay.
I was in that body, but it wasn't me. It was so weird. And some people will talk about like the dark night of the soul and the ego death, and maybe that's what happened to me. I don't know. A lot of this has very similar symptoms than depression, so it can be.
At this point, I have zero, as in zero idea what she's talking about. I cannot follow this. These sentences are made up in a legit, correct, grammatically correct sentence structure, but semantically, it's nonsense.
Very often that things kind of like can be mistaken for one another. But yeah, it was really intense, and I didn't feel good at all. I didn't feel anything, to be honest. So it wasn't.
Also, if you say you have depression, there is being like in a phase of depression, like medically spoken, you can have a phase of depression and you can have major depression. It's a difference. And even a phase of depression needs to be, there is a standard for that. Medical standards are there for that with criteria that determine whether or not you can call it that, and therefore you have a right to, therapy spot, for instance, because you need to qualify in order to get a certain treatment. That is how medical professionals communicate. They need to hold up these standards in order to know what kind of treatment you get and how you are being, handled as a patient, and to not do something that might be, detrimental to you. Because in some cases, as I said, therapy can actually do more harm than good. Talk therapy, as she called it, I would say psychotherapy, but yeah, in general, I would say that it's really important to hold up certain medical standards, and I totally forgot what I was about to say, so let's just let her talk for the rest here.
Good or bad, or it was just, I felt nothing, and that was really tough, and I feel like I'm slowly coming at the end of that. I'm slowly getting better. I'm slowly feeling like I have.
Isn't that kind of weird if you say I felt nothing and that was tough? Like, if I feel nothing, I don't feel good or bad. So how is it tough? Like, if it was tough, it must have been draining or saddening or somehow affecting you. So you must have felt something. I don't know. I feel this is the kind of empty nonsense that teenagers say to their parents. Like, I'm so numb. I just feel nothing. Yeah, you probably listen to a lot of, I don't know, Metallica or something, or Cradle of Filth, and then you're like, it's cool. Like, we all go through that phase. You just should be over it when you're 25.
Some excitement for certain things in my life that I'm excited to do and share, and yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm heading into my 3rd week from the day that I started developing symptoms for COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to him for 3 weeks when I was a teenager.
Most of my symptoms are gone except the loss of smell and taste. Regarding COVID, I got quite a few questions about it, like what were my symptoms. I think I went into that. How did I feel?
So this is the part I really don't get now. She is talking about her COVID experience. I don't know how this is relevant, but let's just see and speed it up a little bit.
Like what my experience was, did I get vaccinated, what my thoughts are about vaccination.
This is actually so not relevant to this.
And honestly, this is not a topic that I'm right now willing to get into, and I know it can be frustrating because
then don't.
You're like, oh, but Chloe, you just got COVID, like, why don't you share more about your experience and what your thoughts are about this whole topic? Well,
I think if she doesn't get the shot, me neither at this point. I got my shot late in 2021, actually, when we came back from Sweden. And so maybe she's a bit ashamed of that. I personally think that nobody should be ashamed of their vaccination status. That is not okay, in society. I think that's not okay. We should all be allowed to do with our bodies what we want. And, everything that we know today about this disease, it was not okay how people were treated. And I hope you guys didn't participate in that kind of, dividing shit of society. Because, that's not good. But this is not relevant to the whole healing crap kind of thing. Like, how's that relevant? Like, if you don't want to talk about your vaccination status, which you shouldn't be, nobody should force you to talk about this, is very personal. Like, why do you feel like you have to disclose that? Is it to stir up more controversy? Or, I just don't understand how this is any relevant.
Well, first of all, I feel like I shouldn't have to defend myself on like why I want or don't want to speak up about a certain topic. But
I
right
agree.
now, through
Unless it's really relevant, you shouldn't feel pressured into talking about it. I think that you should not feel pressured, to talk about anything about your life. But if you have made it a topic before and then people ask, that's kind of legit. So you probably talked in your Instagram stories about this, shared about your COVID disease, and then people were like, hey, did you get the shot? Like, didn't it help? Spoiler alert, no, it doesn't. You can still get it. Doesn't really make a big difference, medically spoken. But you might have a better outcome if you got the shot. So for a lot of groups, it makes sense to have that additional safety, maybe, or if you are afraid of that, healthcare worker or whatever, you have the freedom to do that, and you also have the freedom to not get the shot, which should be a personal decision. I personally never talked about that much in my stories. I only ever talked about that I think people should not discriminate against each other and be ultra political about this. I think a medical decision should not be a political thing, and the politicization of that really, I found it very disturbing.
the process that I shared in this video, the healing that I'm going through, I don't want to expose myself to such a controversial topic.
So weird. I mean, you just exposed yourself due to talking about this extremely weird healing kind of stuff thing. That was okay though. That was okay, but a little COVID, we can't talk about that. No, that's too personal now. Like, but me doing this with my other buddy, well, they're having a seizure in the car, well, that kind of shit, that's not too weird, too personal, too intense. That isn't. How? Like, I don't get it. Like, you're comfortable with one topic, but with the other one you aren't, but still you bring both of them up, and then you're weirded out by people asking.
I want to put myself in that position.
It's called
I
double
shouldn't have to
standard.
justify myself why I decided to speak up about something or share my opinion about something or not. I hope you guys can understand that and have compassion. And I think also the reality is just that, like, I don't feel like I have that much knowledge about this topic, and I don't feel.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel pretty much the same. You don't have any knowledge about this kind of stuff, and you shouldn't be talking about it. I've definitely had a lot of vaccines go through my hands in the ER. But I learned my fair share about that. I think everyone is entitled to an opinion. It's not something special. Everyone has an opinion, just like everyone has an asshole. But I think that this is just not relevant to the video, and the whole point of her was, I think, that she said she had a COVID and then she felt really sick, and she kind of this brought up even more of the emotional trauma that she reconnected with in some weird way without any outside help, all alone in South Africa with her boyfriend, being there supporting her by taking beautiful pictures on the beach, I guess. I don't know. I think it's just really, really odd. And I personally, I think for the time that this was very, very political, I tried to not talk about this so much on my social media because it just didn't fit my content. I spoke up about a bunch of things that I was not okay with, for instance, how children were treated in this pandemic, how a lot of things went down in my country that I was not okay with. I think it's important that you speak up, and when there is a context and an option given to do that. But just to frame your minor symptoms as a trauma response is so odd and so wrong on so many levels. I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way.
Confident enough about something to share about it publicly and influence thousands of people. So yeah. Enough. I don't feel like I have that much knowledge about this topic, and I don't feel like confident enough about something to share about it publicly and influence thousands of people, or share my opinion about something or not. I hope you guys can understand that and have compassion, and I don't want to through the process that I shared in this video, the healing that I'm going through, I don't want to expose myself to such a controversial topic. I don't want to put myself in that position, and I shouldn't have to justify myself why I decided to speak up about something or share my opinion about something or not. I hope you guys can understand that and have compassion, and I think also the reality is just that, like, I don't feel like I have that much knowledge about this topic, and I don't feel like confident enough about something to share about it publicly and influence thousands of people. So yeah.
Did you just spill her own tea here and say that she doesn't feel like she has the knowledge to talk about this? I mean, yeah, it's okay to have an opinion, just like to have a butthole. But it really has no merit. Your opinion on medical stuff has no merit in the medical society. You're not a medical professional and you're not part of the debate. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but at least I am a former nurse and I'm a scientist. So I can do scientific research. I can look up stuff on PubMed and actually understand it because I understand the medical terminology. Do you? I don't think so. I'm sorry, this kind of stuff, I'm not a gatekeeper, but this kind of stuff upsets me. If if I would certainly be able to judge if someone had read up on their knowledge, on medical stuff. And I think that patients can be experts, you can be a PhD patient, or like doctor patient, what we say, like as in a joke, in the hospital, like, we say, a Diplompatient, patient with a diploma, as a joke. But you often see that actually in cancer patients, that they read up so much on experimental therapy and get into all this kind of stuff, or the parents, of cancer kids. And then they suggest new therapies to the doctors and they actually work with that. And sometimes this is productive and life-saving. But this is not that. Nope.
I prefer to share about other things that I feel way more excited to talk about, like this healing journey that I'm going through, and just the brutal honesty of what my life is like right now, and what I've been going through over the last few months. And that's it. I feel like I've shared a lot in this video. I feel like it's going to be long.
I feel like I would enjoy her actually talking about real therapy, going through real therapy, having a real experience, and connecting with her childhood issues or problems that she have, maybe reconnect with her family, and actually really do some work on herself, some growth, and work with a therapist. I would actually like to hear her thoughts on that kind of process. And I really think that, therapy and having a psychiatrist or a psychologist, that, going to shrink, as a lot of people say, like that's the American thing, right? To say to go to a shrink. I think that kind of thing needs to be talked about, and I think it's good to talk about that kind of thing because there is still stigma against people with mental illnesses. And I think it's important to speak up and talk about your mental illness. But if you want to frame your mental illness as just something casual to work through, and if you want to frame your minor childhood problems, mundane things that everybody goes through one way or another, if you want to frame that as trauma, I just think that's inherently wrong, and it's diminishing other people's real trauma. Even this guru said that she doesn't have one of the major traumas, and probably it's this very mild, obscure thing. I think that's very weird, and I'm just, I don't know, I think I'm gonna end this video here. So nothing
Video. It's not
interesting
typical like
happening.
vlog you're used to see on my channel, but I think it's still like to put a little bit of context and behind the
Okay.
scene. And it's not the behind the scene, it's like on the front stage of my life right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about it. One thing that Ross told me recently is, and I resonated with it so much, and I was like, yeah, you're so right. Like that there's so many people that are into personal development, and I was myself like so much into personal development for so many years, but I never did healing. And it's two very distinct.
Just put in therapy for healing here. Like there are so many people into self-development, but they never do therapy. Why is that?
Things. I think like obviously they are intertwined and linked to each other, but they're both.
I say it's either because you live in America and it's cheaper to just buy a self-development book and self-help book and rely on yourself. And I think for a lot of people that are not so privileged, this might be the only option. And then they make a virtue out of a necessity and maybe even vlog about it and make money. And then eventually they can afford therapy and go to therapy. Go to therapy, folks.
Very distinct things. Like you can do self-development without ever healing. And now I'm really understanding what healing is. And
yeah, and you can film vlogs without ever knowing what you're actually talking about, obviously.
You know, you think, oh, healing is just like this fun thing of, you know, you meditate every day and you journal your thoughts and whatnot. And
no, I actually don't think that that is what it is, and I wouldn't call it healing. I would call it recovery.
These things help, like I do them a lot, but healing feels like shit. It's not
Interesting.
something that's enjoyable. Yeah, I thought it was important for me to share about that because I've talked about a lot about self-care and inner work and all that stuff, and I couldn't just like keep on sharing things without sharing that experience that I'm having right now. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it.
I cannot say that I enjoyed this video, so I'm gonna